Hi, I'm going to make this quick video just to help you with binding. Binding should be something that's quite easy. First of all, I'm going to explain the setup that I've got with my eyes. So the eyes here are made out of two shells, an outer shell and an inner shell. And in the inner shell is where the iris is. Let's see if I can show you this. Okay, it's just on the inside there. Just about to see that. I'm going to hide this for the moment here. I've got the inner shell inside the outer shell because the outer shell needs to be rotating along with the inner shell. So for that reason I've made the outer shell the parent, and it just saves you using any constraints by doing that. So that's absolutely fine. The next thing is we want to be able to add some joints to there, and we're also going to need to be able to set up a controller. So first of all, I'm going to show you about the binding side of things. So to do that, first of all, I need to turn on my snapping, and the type of snapping that I want turned on is the axis snap. I'm going to go to the right view, and then when I select the character joint option and we'll hold the control key, you'll see here that it's now snapping. So I can click on this and then click forward from this. Let's just say there will do, and that's fine. Now when I bind this, it's going to automatically pivot correctly the way it should. Now I'm just going to name this L underscore I. I'm not going to worry too much about the end joint here for now. The eyes are symmetrically positioned, so I'm going to be able to easily copy this rig to the other side. So I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to simply go to my character mirror tool. In the naming convention, I want to replace, in my particular case, L underslash with the name R underslash as a prefix to the copied joints that it's going to create. If your character is facing in the positive Z direction, the way it should be in the 3D world space, then everything should be ready to go. You should be able to go to tool and mirror, and then you'll get the other set of joints created, but with the prefix R for the right hand side. As far as anything else goes, if you're on R19, to bind it you can select multiple joints, and we can select both the inner shell and outer shell, or should I say both outer shells, left and right eyes, and the joints. Go to character, command, and bind. If your eyes are not geometry, in other words it's still like a primitive, one of these, okay, if it's one of these primitives still where you can select the sphere, it hasn't got any polygons, so you won't be able to bind it to that. If you have gone that route to create some eyes, make sure that you click on edit to make it editable, and now it's a polygon object. So if you haven't done that, that would be one reason why it won't bind. So when you get to this point, the eyes are now bound to there, and I want to create some nulls, but we can first of all just check to make sure everything's working the way it should be. I've got my weight manager open, so I'm going to close this. When you hold down the shift key and double click on the weight, you should see the eye completely saturated in one single color, and when you go to rotate the joint, it should rotate the eye from the center pivot point of the eye. Okay, now if the eye happens to be the type of eye where it's a shell, a half shell, then you may find that when you position the pivot point in the center of the eye, it may not go to the exact place it needs to go to. Now when you want to position the pivot point in the center of the eye, you select the eye and you just simply go to the mesh, axis center, and the center 2. And if it's a sphere like this, that won't be a problem. But if you've got a half shell, I'll just quickly show you this. Let's make this a reasonable size. make that editable. I'll show you this. Just down there somewhere. There we go. Let's just rotate this just to show you this. If you've got, as sometimes I do, I'm just going to delete that part and then delete the back of it. Sometimes I've got half a shell. If when you go to the mesh and you go commands or no axis center and the center 2, what you'll find is that it won't always necessarily put it where it is right now. Sometimes it will put it between the bounding box, and the reason why it's done it for me is because it's left some vertices behind, as you can see there. But if I just get rid of these vertices with the optimize command and then run that again, mesh, axis center, center 2, it's actually centering it according to the bounding box, and this is not the correct pivot point for the eye. So the way you get around this is you go to the axis center, and then what you do is you tell it on the orientation that it is in. You can see here that in this particular case on the y-axis there, we go to a negative and execute, it will push it to the back. Okay, now this means that the eye will now rotate correctly off that center pivot point from the back of there. So I thought I'd just mention that if you've got half a shell. Our eyes are bound, but we need to have some kind of controller set up, so I'm going to show you a really quick and easy way of doing this. We're going to create some nulls. I'm going to drag these out of this root null for the moment. Keep this simple. I'm going to select the left and the right eye. I'm going to go to the character, conversion, and then convert to nulls. We've now got these controllers created for us. I'm going to also select these controllers and then hold the control key and drag them forwards, so we've got a copy of these. So the copy is going to be the controllers. So I'm going to just type in CTRL on the end of it, so we know the controllers. Actually, these ain't controllers, these are aims. These are going to be our aim targets. You'll see what I'm going to do in a minute. These are aim constraints. These ones here are going to be our controllers. So when our joints are going to be hidden away in a nest of other joints, you ain't going to be able to, or you can if you want to, but it's going to take a while to start searching for your eye joints to select them and animate them. Instead, we want to constrain these to the controllers. Now, because we created the controllers in the way that we did, you'll notice that when I select the left eye and then the left controller, they are in exactly the same orientation and rotation. So in that particular case, you can do the constraint the easy way by selecting the left bone first and then the left controller, to go to character, constraints, and then click on PSR constraint. If the controller in question isn't orientated exactly in the center point of the eye or in the same orientation, then you have to do it the manual way so that it maintains the offset between the two. Otherwise, you'll find that your eye will move to the position of the new position of the controller. So the manual way would be to right click, go to character tags, constraint, PSR constraint, and if your controller was offset in a different location to where the center pivot of the eye is, we click on maintain original. Then we click on that, and then the right controller, and then nothing should move. Now that we've done this, we don't even need to look at these bones anymore, because these are become the controllers. So when I select these controllers now and rotate them, now it's rotating the eye. Now at the moment, we can't really do a lot as regarding rotating them by selecting a controller. This is because the type of setup I'm going to be making is to have a aim constraint. Otherwise, I would have possibly done the offset method that I was just talking about, and that is basically to get the controller, and before you do the constraint, offset the controller in front of the eye, okay, so that you can select the controller outside the eye, but this controller is inside the eye, and I'll show you why. With these other two aim nulls that I've got selected here, I'm going to change them to something like a circle. I'm going to change the orientation of this and change the size. So that's perfect. These are perfectly aligned with the controllers. So you can see here the Z-axis is pointed exactly the same way for each of these. So the left eye to the left aim. If you want to do things the easy way, you make sure that the things that you're going to constrain to, from and to, are in exactly the same orientation, then you're going to come across no problems. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply an aim constraint. You can do this manually, but I'm going to show you the easy way of doing it. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell the left controller to be pointing at the aim of the aim constraint. So there to there. Okay, we select them in the right order. Left eye controller to the left eye aim. And then we go to the character, constraints, and then aim. If you've done it right, nothing should have moved. And I'm going to do it the other way, the manual way, to show you how to do it manually as well. So what you do is you select where it's coming from, the source, right click, character tags, constraint. We select the aim constraint, and then we want to make sure that it's targeting the right eye. Okay, and then everything should be locking perfectly for us. Now what we've got now is we've got two controllers. If we select both of these and move these, we've now got the eyes following along, which is perfect. But you don't want to have to select both of the controllers. So the easy way to get around that is to just select one of these nulls. We're going to duplicate that with the control key. I'm going to call this CTRN for center, and then I'm going to move it so that it's in the 0 x-axis for the center there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just change this scale a little bit like that, make it look a little bit different. You can also use, say, one of these if you wanted to. That's another way of doing it. You could, something a little bit different shape, a bit nicer. In fact, tell you what, let's change that to a triangle. Okay, that's perfect. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop these two left and right aim controllers into that one. Now when we select that as a controller and we move it, both of the eyes are going to move along, and there you go, you've got yourself an eye rig. And that is all there should be to it. If for some reason when you're trying to bind the eye to the geometry and it's not binding, one of the reasons may be is because you created a sphere and you haven't made it editable. It's still a parametric object. It's a primitive, and you can see here by the icon type, it means that it's got some control here, and you can't select the polygons. So it won't be able to bind to the bone because there's no polygons yet until you make it editable, and then it's got the polygons. More precisely the vertices, which are going to be weighted to the bone. So that's one reason why it might not work for you if you're trying to do that way. So that's really it. That's how you create yourself an eye controller. And then of course when you've done that, you can bring the rest of your character back on visually, and then you're good to go. You've got yourself a nice little controller for your eyes, and it will rotate all within the sockets, which is the whole idea of having the center pivot point in the right place for both the eyeball itself and for the joint. So I hope this helps with basic eye rig and how to bind the eyes. Finally, something else you just want to do before I go is just make sure that your controllers in the coordinates are frozen in the freeze transforms. What this means is that if you were to do any animation, you could easily reset it back to 0 again. You can do this in the commands reset PSR, and it will move it back to the original position again.